today's session, as always, as usual, it happens every single Sundays without fail, between 10 and 11. Today, it's like any other given Sundays. We go straight into the debate live session, which happens from now all the way up until the hour of 11. Obviously, you can be part of this particular program via the SMS line 76281885. Alternatively, you can have a say via the phone line a bit later on 350013, where we get to talk and get to understand your thoughts, your views and opinions regarding the issue that we have before us today, the motion that we are looking into. Obviously, as always, as usual, we have to let you know what exactly we're looking at this morning. My brother Chief,
how are you doing, Khwaba?
Very good morning to you, sir. Compliments to the new season.
Happy New Year to you.
When does this thing compliments end? Does it go on and on until maybe media?
Stop getting compliments until the day we die, hella. It's always a compliment.
Sweet, my brother. Let's focus on what we're supposed to be doing today. Let's start off with the motion for the day. What motion are we looking at this morning?
Today we're looking at the motion that we should hold pastors liable for the actions that their congregations suffer on account of their orders. We feel that this is a vital motion, especially in this climate where people are eating grass and doing all sorts of other things.
Now let's get to know who's on the government side and who's on the opposition side.
On the government side today, I have with me a very pretty young lady. She is the best speaker on the African continent. Her name is Onika Ntswijakhosi,
okay.
And I shall be supporting her. And then on the opposition side, we have two gentlemen who are of equal prettiness. Speaking first will be Henry Lukoma, and secondly Tsulufelo Zulu.
I like the fact that this week at least Onika and Zulu are not on the same team.
Yes.
I love it.
I love it. Quite a struggle to pry them apart.
Let's see how it'll go. Let's go to the very first speaker of the day today, I guess, from the government side. Who's kicking it off? Is Onika kicking it off from the government side? Remember, be a part of this particular conversation via the SMS line 76281885. We're all over everywhere. Twitter station is at Duma FM Radio. Alternatively, Khwaba at Khwaba Tunes. That's GOABA TUNES. Let's go to the very first speaker for the day today. This house would hold pastors accountable for harms suffered by the congregation at their demand. Your thoughts, your views on this issues of eating grass. That's exactly what we're talking about. Good morning.
The views and opinions expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the station, its management, nor its advertisers.
You see, at a point at which people are being used to practice pastoral farming and pastors are commanding them to eat grass, of which has significant amount of harm to their bodies, at a point at which a pastor in Brazil is commanding the congregation to drink holy milk from his manhood, at a point at which in Botswana we have pastors continuing to impregnate and having sexual relations with members of the congregation in the name of healing, deliverance and miracles, and at a point at which churches are being so commercialized and there's so much deception, especially pastors claiming to heal certain illnesses that they don't even have the qualification to heal, we feel like as the government, it is high time that we take an action towards these pastors. Now, we tell you of we feel that pastors should start being held accountable and stop hiding behind the veil when they're busy leading the congregation astray. And the harm that we are talking about, I know Tsulufelo is very curious as to the harm that we are talking about. But Tulu, no, I'm not going to define the harm that we're talking about. I feel like harm is such an ambiguous word. And we tell you that at the point at which the state feels there's adequate amount of harm inflicted, then the state shall take action. And we tell you that that action will be commensurate to the harm that is inflicted. The state may stop the pastor from operating, the state may send the pastor to jail, or the state might decide to fine the pastor, depending on the action, on the harm that has been inflicted upon the congregation. So we tell you that just as the state protects us from harms that we could inflict amongst ourselves, as example, driving, like having seatbelt laws, we feel that it is equally important that the state now protect us from harms that we are being inflicted upon by pastors who are at an upper hand and pastors who are abusing their power to best suit their personal interest. Now we tell you that because the congregation is when you're in the church, you can't think logically, you can't think rationally, because it's an issue of faith faith and spirituality, then we feel that the most objective person to perhaps intervene in this debate is the state. And we feel that pastors cannot get away with it because pastors continue getting away with it because it's believed that there is no intent of harm, although there is pastors abusing their powers. So what Zulu and Henry need to prove to us in today's debate, they need to tell us that yes, there is harm, but let us turn a blind eye towards this harm. And they also need to show us why we shouldn't hold these pastors accountable. And then my first argument, I'm going to look into why do we feel that pastors need to be held accountable. Now, what I bring to you is that firstly, the pastors have power over the people. That is to say that they can command the congregation on what to do and not what to do. And we feel that at the point at which they choose to abuse their power, what we see now is them having an unfair advantage over the people. This means they manipulate their power and they abuse their power, such as when we see in South Africa people being commanded to eat grass. That is a pastor clearly manipulating and abusing his power, because there is nowhere in the Bible where God commands people to eat grass. So we feel that that unfair advantage that the pastors have over the people harms the people. It brings an enormous amount of harm to the people, and we feel that what it does is it pollutes religion. Hence, what we are trying to do is we're not only trying to protect the vulnerable members of the congregation of who can't think on a logical basis because they're being clouded with spirituality, but what we're also trying to do is we're trying to bring upon justice, because we feel that at a point at which you do something wrong, then the status quo should cater for you, and that your justice should be served and justice should appear to be served. We also tell you that this is very important. No, Zulu, keep quiet. It also shows that we are protecting religion, because at the point at which now pastors can start interpreting the Bible, however, and using it to their advantage, then what it does is it pollutes religion and it's not in its most purest form. So what we are doing is by weeding out these fake pastors, we are protecting the essence of religion, the vulnerable members of the congregation, and we are surely ensuring that justice has been served. Before I go on, Zulu.
Right. Now, in the status quo, pastors are already prohibited from doing illegal things. You need to tell us why eating grass is a bad thing, since moroho adinawa is a grass.
Well, moroho adinawa ke moroho, like you said, ke moroho wa jewa. But at a point at which you command the congregation to eat grass, that is animal habits. Those are animal tendencies. So at the point at which now you go against the dignity of a person, and the manner in which they're being told to eat this grass is not go and get grass, put it in a plate and eat it. It's in an inhumane way where like you have to kneel down like a cow and eat this grass, and the pastor is busy beating you on the back and saying healing, deliverance. That we think that this is something that pastors are taking advantage of, and they should be sued for that if needs be. And we tell you that because pastors are at a spiritual advantage, we believe that they have wisdom. Then what they should do now is that they can foresee the harm on which they are serving, and now action should be taken against them. I'll continue later in my reply speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Onika. Let's go to the opposition side, where I guess we have Henry as the first speaker from the opposition side. Let's get to understand his thoughts about this issue. My brother, your 5 minutes begin now. Take it away.
Thank you. You see, ladies and gentlemen, religion cannot be put subject to empirical investigation because it's a spiritual phenomenon. For there to be accountability, there has to be a measure of account. Now, we need to look at an example of this whole grass thing, because that's the center of this controversy. The problem I have with this grass thing is they haven't shown us what is so wrong with eating grass. Now, their argument is that they indignity and whatnot. You see, the thing with the grass example is it's the very same indignity, the very same kneeling on the ground is why they believe that they are going to get healing. That's what the source of it comes from, because they feel that if I reduce myself to this level, I'm going to be healed. Now, what they need to understand is, even in the grass eating example, people claim to be healed. Now, what we need to see is that there's always a placebo effect. There's always a psychological effect when it comes to these things. Now, we want to tell you a few things. That firstly, their approach is nothing but a cosmetic approach. Because to deal with this, you need to understand the psychological profile of these kind of people. A lot of the time, they're desperate. Secondly, we're going to tell you how people have the right to medical choice. Because you can't force someone to go to hospital just because they have a broken leg. At the end of the day, it is their choice as to what they're going to do. And then lastly, we're going to tell you that harm in of itself is not enough to force people to not allow to do things. Because we know that alcohol to an extent harms, that smoking to an extent harms. But we don't necessarily hold tobacco makers and alcoholic people accountable. Now, right, what we need to understand that with this religion, with this debate, morality is the biggest question. Because in the absence of any legal infringement, we need to use morality as a base. Now, morality is a measured degree to which an agent, such as a person, can be held morally or legally capable. Now, because we've told you that eating grass isn't technically illegal, we need to use morality.
Henry.
Wait, just chill, right? Now, when we're using morality, in the absence of legal misconduct, we measure morality by intention, which is why even in the secular world, when you look at something like murder, it's divided into manslaughter, it's divided into third-degree murder, it's divided into all these things, because it's the intention that you go into which really counts. We tell you that we don't think that pastors, even no matter how ridiculous they sound, their intention is never to harm their people. We think that religion doesn't need people like Onika to tell them how to do their thing, because we think that religion has its own way of rectifying itself. Because the reason why we know that milk drinking from Brazilian pastors and impregnating people is because religion in of itself tells you that is bad, right? So we don't need this policy, right? Okay, go now.
How do you justify what is happening in Botswana right now, where pastors are continuing to impregnate children, young girls, and having sexual relations with them in the name of healing, deliverance, and miracles? How do you explain that?
We have two things. Now, the problem is for government to intervene, there needs to be a set standard to which they can act, right? If there is no set standard, they can basically act on a whim. Secondly, the pastors thing. Firstly, if they're sleeping with underage girls in the status quo, we already can punish them for what they're doing. And then thirdly, the reason why you can't punish a lecturer for sleeping with his student is because sex at the end of the day isn't illegal. You are allowed to have sex with whoever you want. Now, if you're naive enough to sleep with a pastor, we think that's fine. We think that is wrong. We think that he's abusing his power. But technically, he's not done anything wrong. That is no different from you promising a girl that you're going to spend the rest of your life with her, and then her putting all her hopes and wings onto you, right? Now, we understand this argument of there being spiritual, whatever it is she said, right? Now, here's the second problem, that even in the spiritual context, we think that even in the spiritual context, that is wrong. Now, this boils down to essentially religious persecution, because people at the end of the day have a right to choose what they're going to do. Now, what did I mean by this being a cosmetic approach? A lot of the time, it's the most naive of people, those who are desperate. If you have cancer and you have no cure, right? We tell you, why should you not allow? Why do you not stop people from staying at home because they don't want to lose their hair? And why would you then stop someone just because they're using religion as the reason not to take treatment, right? We think that at the end of the day, we're talking about situations where people have no hope. And to them, if religion is the guiding source, if religion is the only thing that they can use, if a pastor telling them that they can be healed, that's important. Now, the problem with holding pastors accountable, I've taken one already, it's fine, I don't want any more, right? Now, the problem with holding pastors accountable is that what you're essentially saying is that pastors are these evil, malicious people. And we just genuinely don't believe that. We think that this takes away the consideration, the fact that the reason why I cannot go around selling bottled water, because people just won't believe me. There's no way I could sell it. But there has to have been some proof. There has to have been some past evidence to support this. And this is what they're not understanding. These things genuinely happen. These things genuinely work. So what does that show you? That shows you that there cannot be any measure of accountability, and because of the lack of account keeping measures, right? We cannot say that just because a pastor went in with the best of intentions, right? Because even a doctor, Mr. Speaker, if the patient dies on the table, you don't hold them accountable. Now, the essence of this analogy is not to say that doctors are like pastors, but at the end of the day, we look at what it is you're trying to do for the patient. And in a situation whereby they die at your hands simply because you advise them, because all they exist is in an advisory capacity, it's not a scam, because you're not forcing them, you're not offering money of any sort. And with that, I'll conclude my reply, whatever. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Henry, from the opposing side. Let's continue with the show. We're going to go for a quick break. On the other side of that, we'll definitely continue with the issue that we do have before us. Remember, you at home could also be a part of this via the SMS line 76281885. A bit later on, the phone lines will be wide open on 350013, so you get to share, you get to let us know your thoughts, your views and opinions, which are more than welcome via our contact lines. A very good morning to you. This is the live debate session in full swing all the way up until the hour of 11. Let's keep it moving.
Duma FM.